Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the first Hard Count podcast in over 2 months. I know it's been a while, but I'm back, and I'm back to give you my top 50 players in the 2021 NFL Draft. And I'm going to be telling you guys what I like, what I don't like about all these guys, going from 50 all the way up to number 1. So, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Number 50, we have Rondale Moore, wide receiver, Purdue. Now, a lot of these second-round wide receivers are guys that I don't know if they're ever going to be true elite wide receiver ones in the league. But I think these are a lot of guys that have something very good about them, something special about them that if used correctly can be very, very dangerous. And when we know what Rondale Moore has that makes him dangerous, his speed. That is his biggest strength, his game-breaking speed. We're talking low 4.3s, high 4.2s here with extreme shiftiness. He jukes people out. He makes guys miss. He's a nightmare in the open field. Now, those are his strengths. His weaknesses, he's a little bit smaller. He is 5'9". He will likely end up going to the inside, being a slot type of guy for whichever team drafts him. And also, another thing is, he wasn't used in too many different ways at Purdue. Now, a lot of it was just dump it off to Rondale Moore, let him run, let him juke people out. And that's okay. But in the NFL, I think he's going to be asked to do a bit more of an expanded role. We'll see how his inexperience in those roles will really translate to the NFL. We will see. I think he can do it. We just haven't seen much of it. And then another thing is, he has really some serious injury concerns. He's only played 7 games for the past 2 seasons. He had several injuries. Can he stay healthy? That is a big question mark for Rondale Moore. So the strengths, his speed, his shiftiness, the weaknesses, he's smaller. He's likely going to end up being a slot player. Then he wasn't asked to do too much at Purdue, and also his injuries. So Rondale Moore, number 50. Number 49, we have Liam Eichenberg, tackle, Notre Dame. And Liam Eichenberg was interesting. I think this is a guy that isn't going to ever be a real true franchise left tackle, but I think he can definitely be a starting right tackle in this league. I think that's what you're really hoping for from this guy, and maybe he can be a left tackle even. The strength for Liam Eichenberg, which was very good to see. He was a very strong player. He dominated guys physically on the edge in college, and I think that will translate in the NFL. As well as getting leverage. He knew where to place his hands and how to use them. So that is his strength. Now, his weaknesses, he's not a fantastic athlete. I think he's more of an average athlete. I think that he doesn't have great feet. He's not super quick, and I think that could hurt him at the NFL level against those quicker elite pass rushers that he's going to end up facing. Now, another thing to look out for him is he's more of a reactionary player at this point. He's a guy that stands up, kind of waits to see what's going to happen, and then reacts and plays from there. I think that could be a thing that hurts him in the NFL as well. So those are his 2 glaring weaknesses for me. The other things he does well. He's pretty technically sound, versatile. He was asked to do a lot in that Notre Dame offense. Gets leverage, nice play strength. So I think he's a guy you can draft with confidence, play him at right tackle. Maybe you can develop into your franchise left tackle. Liam Eichenberg, number 49. 48, we have Nick Bolton, linebacker, Missouri. Nick Bolton is a little bit different than a lot of the linebackers in this class. We see a lot of physical freaks here that need to be coached up at linebacker in this class. Nick Bolton is a little bit of the opposite. Nick Bolton is a guy that really has a great understanding of how to play linebacker. He is that commander of a defense. He is patient. He knows when to shoot gaps. He has great instincts for a linebacker. Now, he isn't as physically dominant. He's a little bit undersized. He isn't going to be flying around the field, but his sense of knowing what to do, being that centerpiece of that Missouri defense, will be something that will translate in the NFL. I like him as a second-round linebacker that you can plug in day one into your defense, and he will make an impact because he's that type of player. Now, he's also strong. He's kind of a pit bull. He's strong for his size. So Nick Bolton, I like him. More of a second-round player to me. So he is number 48. Now, number 47, we have Elijah Moore, wide receiver, Ole Miss. Elijah Moore, he's a little bit lower on my board than a lot of other people's boards. A lot of people see him as a first-round guy. I don't. I think he's more of a second-round type of player. Now, similarly to Rondale Moore, I think Elijah Moore is that's going to is a guy that's going to end up being pushed to the inside because of his size. He's going to be more of a slot guy. Now, he is the ideal slot receiver. He has a good route runner. He's shifty. He's got a good release, good hands. He's tough. But I think he is limited in terms of strength. I don't think he's fantastic when it comes to speed down the field. That wasn't something he was asked to do much at Ole Miss. He has decent speed, but not really great speed. And, I think he might struggle a little bit more with those more physical corners in the NFL right now, those more imposing corners that he's going to have to end up facing. So the size and the speed, as well as the fact that he had a lot schemed up for him at Ole Miss, a lot of easy, just let him do his things underneath, not too much down the field, creating plays in the intermediate, deep passing game as much. So Elijah Moore, number 47, the strengths, of course, his shiftiness, his route running, his release, his hands, his toughness. Well, the weaknesses, he's not the strongest. I think he might struggle a little bit with that and be pushed towards the inside in the NFL. And then also not elite speed and never really show the ability to create a lot down the field. So Elijah Moore, number 47. Now, number 46, we have Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle, Alabama. Alex Leatherwood, we've seen him play. He's been on in the national championship games. He's been playing in those bright lights at Alabama for a while. He's a massive guy with grown man strength, people mover. He's lengthy. Those are his strengths. That's what he does best. And those are the reasons he is a second-round pick, in my opinion, in my view. Now, his weaknesses, and I think this is what holds him back from being a really, truly elite guy in this class, he's a little bit stiff. He's doesn't have very quick feet. I think he might struggle a little bit against those quicker edge rushers that he's going to end up facing in the NFL if he plays at that tackle position. I think this might be a guy that gets moved to the inside because of those tools that he has in terms of strength and physicality and length. But the lack of speed and feet and agility on the outside. So I think this is a guy that could be moved to the inside if it doesn't work out at tackle. But I think just that length, strength, are the things that are going to get him drafted in the second round, and the reason that he is my 46th best player. Now, number 45, we have Pat Freiermuth. I'm not totally sure how to pronounce it, but tight end out of Penn State. He is a well-rounded tight end. Pat Freiermuth is a guy that can block for you. He can be your receiver if you need him to. He's a good route runner. He's very strong. The strength in his game is his biggest strength. He will impose his will as a blocker, and I think can be coached up even more to be a truly elite blocking tight end, as well as a guy that is dangerous in the receiving game. He can create separation. Now, doesn't have elite speed. He doesn't have elite physical tools, but this is a guy that can run over guys. He can, really run over some guys, break tackles in the receiving game, as well as create separation. Now, he doesn't have game-breaking speed. He's not a phenomenal athlete at that receiving element of being a tight end, but he can definitely get it done, as well as being a great blocker. Pat Freiermuth out of Penn State. I'll be interested to see where he goes at number 45. Number 44, we have Levi Onwuzurike. I'm not totally sure how to pronounce it. I'm sorry, Levi, for mispronouncing your name. Out of Washington, interior defensive lineman here. He is an interesting player for me. I think this is a early second round guy, maybe could sneak into the first. We will see what teams think of him. But he's a little bit undersized for that interior defensive line. He's under 300. He's 293, 6'3", not as big as a lot of other guys at that position. Now, Levi is a really powerful guy. He's a guy that's bigger than what the size, or is stronger than what his size shows, or at least that's what his college days show. And he's also very, very explosive. Those are his biggest strengths. That ability to be strong and explosive off the line, it's unmatched. You're not going to find many guys that are that, just quick off the line, getting into the interior offensive lineman's grill, and really can make him pay if he's not ready for that. And that's really what's special about Levi Onwuzurike. Now, the biggest weakness, there's a couple of them. Again, that size, that is something to be worried about. That is something, can it translate to the NFL? That strength that he brought every play in college. Another thing, I want to see him be a little bit more of a guy that follows through. A guy that, if he gets hit, he just goes right back at the quarterback. He sometimes gets hit and he kind of gets flustered and doesn't really create much of an impact. I'd like to see him, take on, extend the play. If he gets hit, just go back in and impact the play again. That's what I like to see, rather than just being stonewalled if he doesn't get off right away, which happens occasionally for him. Now, he's number 44. Number 43, we have Wyatt Davis, interior offensive lineman from Ohio State. Wyatt Davis is, obviously the first interior offensive lineman on my list. He really is a guy that I think can be developed into something very great. Now, he has great physical tools for a guard. He's 6'4", 315, got that ideal size. He's built like a guard. Then, he's got great balance. He doesn't really get pushed off balance much, and he always recovers. And this allows him to be such a great pass blocker, which I think is the best part of his game. Now, the weaknesses, I think we look at a guy that needs to be coached up on how to be a part of an entire offensive line. Like, he'll be running into other guys on the offensive line. He'll be forgetting or missing blocks that aren't immediately in front of him. If he needs to block a linebacker, he will fail to do that occasionally. If he needs to play a role that isn't just stand up and block someone, he often struggled a little bit more in those roles in terms of blocking down the field in the run game and things like that. Those are things that I look at with Wyatt Davis, and I'm like, okay, this is a little bit of a concern. Now, I think it's something that he can develop, and I think it's something that he can bring to the table, but right now, it's not a great part of his game, and also, he's had some injury issues throughout his career. So that's what I think about Wyatt Davis. He's certainly a second-round pick, maybe slips into the first. I know a lot of people are high on him at some points. But again, the strengths, he is good physical tools. He's got good balance. While the weaknesses, in terms of blocking in the run game, being where he needs to be, blocking who he needs to block, that's not always the case, which is definitely something to monitor for Wyatt Davis at number 43. Number 42, we have Kelvin Joseph, cornerback out of Kentucky. Now, Kelvin Joseph is one of my, quote, guys in this class. I really do like Kelvin Joseph quite a bit. He is just a physical specimen. I mean, this guy is exactly what you look for in terms of fluidity and athleticism at the cornerback position. He's very long, very fluid in his movements, has good hips, great ability to mirror wide receivers. This is a guy that I can really see being that elite cornerback one in the NFL. Now, it is interesting because he has the skill set to be a man coverage guy. He wasn't asked to do it too much in college, so that's definitely something to look at. But the biggest weakness is just the way he bites on things and gives up plays. He will bite on little fakes and things like that and cause things to happen that did not need to happen. And that is a big concern. And that's why he is a second-round guy, in my opinion, not a first-round guy, because those tools that he has in terms of fluidity and speed and movement, those are all things that he has, and those are first-round traits. But that biting on those little things that wide receivers do, that's what pushes him into second for me, but he is one of my guys. I think this is a guy that can be that true elite cornerback one, and that's not something you can say about too many guys in this class, in my opinion. So Kelvin Joseph, number 42 on my board. That leads us to number 41, Dylan Radins, tackle from North Dakota State. And the biggest weakness here, it's pretty glaring. It's his size and his strength. Now, I think we look at Radins as he's a guy that can really pass block. I mean, that's what he did very well under Dakota State when he was given the opportunity. That offense was not super pass heavy, but he did it very well. He has a very nice anchor for a tackle. He has very nice balance for that tackle position as well. So those are his strengths, that balance, the anchor, the pass blocking ability is very, very good. Now, the weaknesses, again, that size, that is something that is concerning, and that leads to some concerns about, can he get physically dominated by some bigger pass rushers? He played against those FCS defenses that he wasn't getting tested too much. So in the NFL, is it going to be a little bit of a shock when he gets hit in the face by those really physical edge rushers that he's bound to go up against? Now, again, that balance, those anchor, that's what pushes him in the second round for me. He is a very solid tackle prospect, and he's a second round guy that I'd definitely be willing to take a shot on. So Dylan Radin's number 41. Number 40, we have the second linebacker we were talking about here, Jabril Cox, linebacker, LSU. Now, Jabril Cox's biggest strength is his range. He flies around the field and is very, very good at that. It's not something you see every day from linebackers. Another thing that he does very well is that he is quick. He's explosive in pass rush situations. He gets off the line quickly and gets up in the O-lineman's grill, gets to the quarterback, creates pressures. Now, those are his biggest strengths because his range, his explosiveness, his athleticism, those are what he does very well. And that's why I think he's a early second round pick. Now, the weakness is I'm a little bit concerned about his strength. Now, this guy is a guy that's very tall, but very lanky as well. I think that he might have some trouble getting to the quarterback against those NFL-level offensive linemen consistently. He's not super powerful. He doesn't really push the linemen around, which we're going to see from the top linebackers that we're talking about. And he's also not a phenomenal tackler. He missed some tackles that I'm like, you got to make those in the NFL. So those are the things that we're looking at for Jabril Cox: the range, the athleticism, the ability to get off blocks, find the play, be quick and explosive. It's all there. But can the strength hold up in the NFL? Can he develop those tackling? I think that is certainly something he can do, and that's why he's an early second rounder in my view. So Jabril Cox, number 40. Now we're into our next group of our into the 30s. We got Landon Dickerson, interior offensive lineman from Alabama, here at number 39. And, he is probably going to be a center in the NFL, and his biggest strength is his strength. He is built like a center. He has, he's 325, 6'6". He is a unit at that center position. He really makes a lot of big-time blocks, a lot of, just moving guys, just manhandling them, and that's what he did in college at Alabama. So that strength, that size, that is what Landon Dickerson brings to the table, and that's what makes him a very good interior offensive line prospect, because that's really what you need. Now, the biggest things that I'm looking at and questioning is, one, he's a redshirt senior. He is going to be old. He was playing, dominating some of the younger guys, some freshmen, sophomores in colleges, juniors. He was older than almost everyone else on the field when he was playing, so that may have been a little bit of reason for his physical domination. So that's just one thing to look at. I still think that he can dominate in the NFL as well, but just something to pay attention to. Another thing is he tore his ACL just this past year. So that's just something to monitor and is definitely a little bit of a concern. So the strengths for Landon Dickerson, his strength and his size. Now the weaknesses, again, his not the most athletic ability. I'm not too worried about it though, because at center, you don't really need to be an elite athlete, and his torn ACL. So those are just things to monitor for Landon Dickerson, but still a guy that I would be confident taking and plugging him day one, confident in him being a good, solid offensive lineman. So that's why he's an early second rounder to me. Now, number 38, we have Tyson Campbell, cornerback out of Georgia. And Tyson Campbell, to me, I think is another guy that I think is a little bit underrated in this draft process. I think a lot of people are seeing this guy as more of a third round type of player. I think he's an early second type of player. I mean, the way this guy moves in terms of his hips and his speed, that is something that is really, really special about Tyson Campbell. This is a guy that has great physical tools, a guy that that number one shutdown corner. And I think this would be a guy that could be taken in that first round that I would have no issue with it because I can totally see why. And this is a guy that can be developed into that elite corner, like I mentioned, because of that length, those hips, that speed. That is what he did very, very well. And those are his strengths. Now, the weaknesses, one, he really isn't as physical as I'd like to see him be. He doesn't really impose his will on wide receivers. He kind of would let guys push him around, and I think that could be an issue at the NFL level. So that's one. Secondly, really he wasn't a guy that made a ton of plays when things came his way. He kind of wasn't able to get in the right spot. He wasn't able to force incompletions and make big-time plays, which I'd like to see more. He often let things happen that he shouldn't. He might be there in the right place and just not make the play. So that's just something to look at with Tyson Campbell. So the strengths, he has all the physical tools in the world. This guy has the upside of tremendous upside. He has that upside of being an elite cornerback one in this league. And that's why he's a second-round pick, just lacking a lot of that instinct and physicality, which does concern me just a little bit. So that's why he's more of a early second instead of a mid-early first type of guy, which his tools may say he is. Now, 37, I have Joseph Osai. I think Joseph Osai is getting a little bit forgotten about in this class. He, from Texas, edge rusher. I think this is a guy that is very, very athletic. Speed and athleticism, explosiveness, that is what Joseph Osai brings to the table. He just flies around the field, is seemingly everywhere, making plays on everything. And so that's why I love Joseph Osai. He gets off blocks well. He's speedy. He's gritty. He's always in the play. And that's why I think this is a guy that's being forgotten about a little bit. I think that those things are just things that cannot be overlooked. Now, the weaknesses, they are there. He is not tremendously strong. He really didn't dominate physically, and I think that could hurt him in the NFL. I think that some of the offensive linemen in the NFL could maybe physically dominate him just a little bit, and that is something to worry about. Now, he doesn't have phenomenal bend either. I think he needs to be able to push the pocket a little bit more. I wish he was more physical. Again, that strength, physicality, that is what I'm looking at as a weakness for Joseph Osai. Also, wish he had a little bit better balance as a pass rusher as well. Sometimes gets thrown off, thrown out off balance too much by those offensive linemen. So that's just something to look at. But I think this is a guy that's a early second-round pick. I wouldn't even be mad if he was a first-rounder. I think he's a guy that can play in a 3-4 outside linebacker role, or 4-3, edge rusher type of guy. A guy that you can use in pass coverage and just use his range and athleticism, speed off the edge to the advantage. So I think Joseph Osai is a player that's getting a little bit forgotten about. I think he is a early second round type of player, and I do like a lot of the things he brings to the table out of Texas. So Joseph Osai, 37. 36, we have Jackson Carman, who I actually liked a little bit more than I expected. Offensive tackle from Clemson. Jackson Carman, he's massive. First of all, he's 6'5", 320, and the athleticism and skills that he brings to the table for a guy that big really did impress me. He had good feet. He was quick. For a guy as big as he is, he's a guy that really was a people pusher as well. He moved guys around. He imposed his will on edge rushers. He did not let them stand up. He stuck his hands in, used his hands well to react to pass rush moves. And that was something that really impressed me. Those were his strengths. He's big, he's strong, uses his hands very, very well. Now, the weaknesses, I think he needs to work on his anchor a little bit, his balance. He does get knocked off balance did get knocked off balance a little bit more than I would have liked to see, which would cause some pressures, him getting, disrupting the pocket and things like that. And that anchor did cause him to get pushed around just a little bit at some points. He also needs to react a little bit better to moves to the inside. That's how a lot of guys beat him. They would cut to the outside quickly and then move back into the inside, and they'd end up beating him that way. He needs to react better to those types of things and those pass rush moves that are going to be used against him inevitably in the NFL. So Jackson Carman, very good player. The size, the strength, the hands, those are all things that he possesses, as well as the athleticism. I think he has really great left tackle ability that is just waiting to be unlocked, and I think he's a guy that can be taken in the early first, late second, definitely. And if the right team uses him the right way, and develops his skills, then Jackson Carman can be a great offensive lineman. So I like him a good bit there at number 36, offensive tackle, Clemson, Jackson Carman. 35, we have Kadarius Toney, wide receiver from Florida. And so this is the last wide receiver we talked about was Elijah Moore. Now we're talking about Kadarius Toney. And we talked about how guys that I view as more second-round picks are guys that are going to be very good at something. And Kadarius Toney is very good after the catch. He is special after the catch. The way he runs into guys, makes a little spin move, and creates that extra 4 yards. The way he jukes guys out, the way he does all of those things makes him truly special after the catch. A guy that you cannot catch. Give him a screen pass and he turns it into 6 yards. And that is something that is truly special about Kadarius Toney, and that is what makes him a early second-round pick. Now, the weaknesses, not the fastest player. For a guy as agile, as shifty as he is, I would like to see a little more straight-line speed that just really isn't there for Kadarius Toney. Also, not quite a fantastic route runner yet. Doesn't have a full route tree developed. I think that is something that can be changed. That's not something we saw a lot at Florida. Him running all sorts of routes and double moves and things like that. We didn't see that much at Florida from Kadarius Toney, but we did see his special after the catch, change of direction, fidgety, making guys miss. Another thing that I like to mention, tough blocker, and a guy that I think if you put him in the right place, let's say 49ers, a guy that they'll utilize his strengths well, I think this guy could be very, very special and very, very dangerous. I don't know if he'll ever be that elite wide receiver one, but Kadarius Toney is a guy to look out for and a guy that can be a nightmare for opposing defenses. Now, we've got at number 34, we have Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma State. Tevin Jenkins is a guy that is kind of similar in a way to Landon Dickerson, who we talked about. This is a guy that has great strength, imposes will on guys, good run blocker, good hands, very physically imposing, just like Landon Dickerson. But the reason that I'm thinking a little bit concerned and maybe a little bit of a question mark is he was old in college. He was a redshirt senior. He's going to be 23 on the day of the draft. He was a older, more developed, bigger and stronger guy than the other guys in college, naturally because of his age. So maybe that is something that won't transfer over to the NFL, because in the NFL, he's going to be playing with guys just as big, just as strong. Well, I think it can, because he was so physically dominant, and the way he uses his hands is great. So those are the things that I look at. Good balance, good anchor. That's what I look at for Tevin Jenkins as what he does well. Again, that age is a little bit of a question mark, as well as his mere ability, the ability to go foot for foot, stay in front of those defensive edges. Not fantastic. He's only got average feet. He's not the quickest offensive tackle, and I think that could definitely hurt him in today's NFL. So Tevin Jenkins, very strong guy, good hands, good balance, and I think he is going to be a great run blocker day one. I think he's an early second round, maybe late first round pick as well. Tevin Jenkins there at number 34. Now, number 33, Walker Little. Walker Little is one of the most interesting players in the draft in terms of where he goes. This is someone that I don't know what NFL teams are going to be thinking about him because he's played one game in the past 2 years. That is just something you don't see in draft prospects very much. Like, how do you evaluate that from Walker Little? Walker Little, though, I think is a guy that has so much, ability and talent that he is a guy that I think could go anywhere from the first round to the third round, depending on how teams see him. But I do see him as that early second round, late first round type of talent, just because of, the physical traits, the ability that he brings to the table, that upside. That's why he is going to be an early pick in my view, and that's why he's on my board as high as he is. Now, the weaknesses, again, we haven't seen him play in 2 years. Is he going to be in football shape? What kind of improvements has he undergone, if any? So those are big question marks with Walker Little, as well as, when he was playing, because of his height, sometimes he was able to be beat in the run game. Guys were able to take advantage of it, as he does play a little bit high. So that's just one thing to look at. But Walker Little brings a lot to the table. Just what are we going to get from him? He's a question mark in a lot of ways. So Walker Little there at number 33. And then number 32, we have our third straight offensive tackle, Samuel Cosmi out of Texas. And Samuel Cosmi is really a guy that is another, similarly to Walker Little, another physical specimen at the tackle position. Now, Samuel Cosmi is just an absolute monster. I mean, you look at him, I think he's 6'7", just a beast, and he's a special athlete for a guy that size. His feet are tremendous, his agility. It's really something you don't see ever with guys that are as big as he is, and that's just what he brings to the table. That upside that Samuel Cosmi brings is phenomenal. Now, he is a guy that will need to be coached up at that tackle position. He's a guy that can be late out of his stance just a little too much. He can be pushed off balance, put off balance. He needs to really solidify that balance at that offensive tackle spot more. And, just his technique overall in pass blocking. He plays a little bit high, like we talked about with Walker Little. Can get beat in different ways for that regard. But just his hips, the ability to open up his hips at the right time, at the right moment. He's that special athleticism, his size, his strength. That is all there for Samuel Cosmi, and that's why I think he is a early second, definitely, first round type of guy in Samuel Cosmi. Now, at number 31, we have Christian Barmore out of Alabama, who is my number one interior defensive lineman in the class. So sorry if you were holding out hope there for anyone else. But Barmore, we've seen him play at all different levels at Alabama. He is inconsistent. That is definitely one thing to describe Christian Barmore. Now, Barmore is a pit bull kind of guy. He's got a lot of power. He's long, he's lanky, and very strong with pretty good flexibility. I mean, this guy, he really does overpower guys up front, and that's what his biggest strength is. I mean, he's 6'5", 310. He's pretty young as well. So just that strength just pops off the film. That's what makes him a first-round player, in my opinion. Now, again, the weaknesses, he is really inconsistent. Sometimes he just cannot beat guys, and his physicality just does not show up as much. He also has only played one season as a starter. That's just one thing to look at. can we see him really have that experience to go in and be that day one starting special guy for a team? I'm not sure. And then also, the reason he's not really higher is because he doesn't bring elite things to the table in terms of speed and explosion off the line of scrimmage. That's not what Barmore does at an elite level. So he does a lot of things very nicely, strong, kind of a Pitbull type of player, just not that special level that it would take to be that top 10 talent, which I don't think he quite is, but he is a first-round guy, in my opinion, the best interior defensive lineman in this class. We'll see how that inconsistency in college, limited experience as a starter affects him, but does a lot of things nicely. Christian Barmore there at number 31. Number 30, we have a guy I'm a little bit lower on than some other people, Rashad Bateman, Minnesota wide receiver. Now, Rashad Bateman, to me, is a borderline first to second kind of player. He is a guy that I think really could go either way. We know the deal with Rashad Bateman if you're paying attention to the draft prospects. Good route runner, just one of the best route trees in the class, very crafty. He did a lot of that at Minnesota, and that was the way he got separation. Very good route runner, good release, and good hands. Very good slant runner, let's say that. Good understanding of how to play wide receiver. That's what you got with Rashad Bateman. Now, my comparison for him, poor man's Michael Thomas, and the reason for that is because he lacks athleticism, and that is what concerns me. Can he get away with this lack of speed, lack of burst, and elite athleticism? I'm not sure, and I think it could really hurt him in the NFL and hurt his hopes of becoming a top-tier receiver. Now, I'm not saying it's required to be a top guy. You see some of those great guys not be the greatest athletes. So there's definitely exceptions to the athleticism rule, and I'm not ruling Rashad Bateman out at all because of it. It's just something to look at and be a little bit concerned about, because the athleticism, that is something that can catch up to you when you get into the NFL. So that's just my thoughts on Rashad Bateman. So I like a lot of things about him, but I'm a little worried about that lack of great athleticism. He's not a terrible athlete, but I think that lack of elite top speed could definitely catch up to him in the NFL. So Rashad Bateman there at number 30. Number 29, we have a little bit of a sleeper player here, Peyton Turner. I do like Peyton Turner quite a bit. Good feet, very good hands. He's more of a 3-4 type of edge rusher. He's that bigger style edge rusher that's going to look more like a nose tackle than an outside linebacker. That's what Peyton Turner more is. But he doesn't play like one. He is very quick off the edge. He is a very strong player who attacks that offensive tackle well. Good feet, as I said. Hands, does a nice job with them. Now, my knocks on him is, one, he needs to develop a few more ways to win. There's a lot of times that you see him attack in the similar ways. He will, only take one shimmy and then go to the outside. That's his main thing that he does. He needs to develop a little bit more ways to win, because at that stop, he did struggle just a little bit more. But still, that explosion and burst, I think he can easily develop those things, and it's just going to be dangerous when he does. Another thing to look at, he wasn't tested too much at Houston, and he did play Brady Christensen, one of the better offensive tackles in this class, and he struggled a little bit more, and that was one of the only real solid OTs that we've seen him play. So that is a little bit concerning there, but he was just so dominant most of the time. I have faith in that elite athleticism, hands, the quickness, his size, his strength, all of these things that Peyton Turner did so well for him to be able to dominate against those NFL level tackles. So Peyton Turner, I do like him quite a bit. He is a first-round talent, in my opinion, here at number 29. Then number 28, we have Ifeatu Melifonwu, cornerback out of Syracuse. This is another one of my sleeper guys. And Ifeatu has all of the physical traits to be a really special cornerback in this league. And I think he's a first-round talent. I mean, he's got the speed, he's got the size, he's got the length, he's got the hips. That is what Ifeatu brings to the table. Now, he's still raw. He bites a little bit on occasional, fakes and things like that. He needs to get better at. He needs to develop more of an understanding on how to be a corner, spacing on the field, where he needs to be at the right time. And another positive, can be very physical as well. He uses his hands well in coverage, which are all great things to see from him. And so, Ifeatu, I think just that speed, size, length, hips, physicality, that's what he brings to the table. Now, he lacks some of that technicality of being a corner in terms of biting on occasional fakes, again, developing those instincts as a corner, where he needs to be at the right time, tackling as well. That is definitely something you need to look out for Ifeatu. All those things, but just those physical traits that he brings to the table are so enticing to me. I think he is a guy that can be your elite wide receiver, or corner one for your team, and that's why he is a first-round talent at number 28. Then number 27, we have Trevon Moehrig, my safety one in this class. Sorry if that spoiled it for you, but Trevon Moehrig is a guy that is very, very explosive. He's lengthy. He is a great tackler, that really attacks the ball at the catch point, breaks up passes. That's what he does. That's what Trevon Moehrig brings to the table very, very well. Now, the weaknesses, why he's not higher. Now, one, I do not think his range at safety is necessarily special. He's not flying all around the field. That is one thing to look at. And that definitely is a knock at that safety position. I don't think he's going to be a guy that you're putting up there ISO safety all the time. I think he's going to be more of that box type of guy that you can play when there's two safeties deep if you need. Just kind of a guy you can play really anywhere that can play that linebacker role, can play that safety role. Just explosive and a guy that can cover anyone. So that's what I think about Trevon Moehrig. I think he's a very good safety prospect and a first-round prospect. That's why I have him at number 27. Number 26, we have a guy that I actually believe is a top 6 talent in this class, and that is Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. Caleb Farley, if it wasn't for the injuries, would be my number 6 player on my board. Caleb Farley's ability to play in man coverage is something you do not see very often. Caleb Farley, he's got some elite speed, great long speed, down the field, great size and length, very, very special, rare traits for a guy that big. You do not see guys that move like that at his size. Great pursuit on comeback routes. He's just quick, shifty at changing directions. Great hips in terms of fluidity. Just special when it comes to those traits you love to see in cornerbacks. This guy is a cornerback prospect you do not get every year. You just don't find guys that can press like Caleb Farley can in that single man coverage, ISO on the outside against any guy. Caleb Farley can do it. Now, that's all great, but the weaknesses, well, let's just start with his play. One, he can be a little bit grabby, a little bit over physical at times. And also I would have liked to seen him, utilize his hands just a little bit better at the line. So guys, because sometimes he would let guys away that he shouldn't, let guys get past him that he shouldn't, not use his hands correctly to set guys off balance right away. That's just one thing to look at. And I think he may need to adjust a little bit to some zone coverage schemes in the NFL, which is another thing to look at. But just those traits are phenomenal. Now, the biggest thing that we need to talk about is his injuries. I mean, they are very scary. And that's why he is all the way down here at number 26 and not up at 6. He's had surgery on his back twice, I believe, very recently. He's torn his ACL in 2017. And just injuries that are very scary. And this is a guy that's playing maybe the most difficult position in football that requires the most athleticism, and he plays it with a brand of cornerbacking that is built on speed and agility and hips and running. So not only how is this surgery going to affect him, but how is he going to be affected in the future by these injuries? Is he going to continue to be injured? That is just a big question mark for Caleb Farley. We have no idea. But some team is going to take a risk on him. And if it pays off, it is going to be special what Caleb Farley can do. But will it pay off? That's the question. I think this guy is a first-round talent still, or a first-round pick still, even through the injuries, which is speaking volumes, all of those injuries, and he's still a first-round guy. But we'll see. We will see what happens with Caleb Farley. Just a great player that has unfortunately had some major injury issues. Now, number 25, we have Aziz Aguilari, edge rusher out of Georgia. And Aziz Aguilari is a more outside linebacker kind of player. He's on the smaller side in terms of height. He's only 6'3" for an edge rusher. Only 6'3". But that's just something to look at. And I think he's more of that, quicker, off the edge, athletic type of player. He has great bend, good awareness. He knows where to be, where the play is going on, where he needs to be. And he makes plays a lot because of it. A guy that, again, at outside linebacker role, it works for him. He's a guy that can drop back into coverage if he needs to. Which is definitely very valuable, especially in those schemes that will be asking him to do that. And he also does a very nice job getting up into the tackle's grill when he's setting up a move, a pass rush move, and really can set the tackle off balance. That's one of his strengths for sure. He's lengthy, wins with quickness, his bend. He's a good athlete. Those are the Aziz Aguilari's strengths. That's what he does well. Now, his weaknesses, he is not the strongest player. He doesn't create a ton of push for a guy his size. That is definitely his biggest weakness, that size and that strength, which is certainly very valuable at the pass rush position. So that's just something to look at. He's more of a finesse speed kind of guy that wins with his bend. I think that's valuable for some teams for sure. That guy that can drop in a pass coverage as well. That lengthy, good athlete type of player. I think he's a first-round guy. So Aziz Aguilari there at number 25. Then at number 24, we have J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. Now, J.C. Horn, pretty lanky dude with good size. He's a good tackler. He plays on ball pretty well. Pretty good, sticky and coverage type of guy. Now, the biggest concerns with J.C. Horn is, one, his physicality is a little bit excessive. He is a grabby, pushy, just all over you type of guy. And we'll see how that plays out in the NFL. He's a guy that also really lacks elite top-end speed, and I think that really will limit his ceiling as a cornerback in this league. I mean, how are you going to be able to keep up with a lot of those top guys, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill? If you don't have that elite top speed, you're going to be grabbing them, you're going to be doing those things. So that does concern me. But he does have great technique. He, has good hips. He's sticky in coverage and does a lot of things very, very well. So J.C. Horn, number 24, cornerback out of South Carolina. Now, number 23, edge rusher out of Penn State, Jason Oweh. Now, Jason Oweh is definitely a first-round talent in my opinion. I mean, he's a freaky player. He's got the combination of strength and speed that you don't really see that often in edge rushers. I mean, he does a great job impacting the play. He pushes the pocket, gets in the face of the quarterback. Now, I know Oweh did not have any sacks at Penn State, but he made an impact much more than that number shows. I mean, again, he gets in the face of the quarterback. He creates pressures. The explosiveness off the edge is fantastic. He has great hands to make an impact. He throws tackles off balance because of that explosiveness in his hands. So, I mean, he has a lot of upside there for Oweh. I mean, that is a lot of special traits. Now, my biggest worry for him is just how raw he is. I mean, one, he wasn't asked to do too much at Penn State. His role was pretty standard, just edge rusher type of guy. I mean, he was asked to do the same thing on a lot of plays. Wasn't really asked to drop back in coverage much at all. And his role was pretty much the same every time he stepped foot on the field. Now, another thing, he had limited reps at Penn State as well. So, one, you get a limited role with limited reps. You're going to be inexperienced, and that inexperience showed up in his tape while he was playing. I mean, he needs to develop some more pass rush moves that can help him win consistently, help him finish the play, get those sacks, and get those tackles, finish the play, be where he needs to be because his instincts are a little bit lacking. Those are things that he needs to develop. Also, some pass rush moves to the inside. I'd like to see him move off guys to the inside rather than winning on the outside with quickness and speed. I'd love to see him be able to cut back to the inside when that doesn't work. That's not something he really did when he was at Penn State. So those are things that I look at with Oweh and think these are things that could develop. I mean, he's got that raw strength. He's got the speed. He's got the hands, the explosiveness. I think that's what makes him a first-round guy. But those are the things that need to develop, and those are the things that could take him to that elite pass rush level. So Jason Oweh, their first-round talent at number 23. That takes us to number 22. We have wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. out of LSU. Now, Terrace Marshall has some great upside as a wide receiver in this class. I mean, we look at it and he's got big frame. He's got good hips. He's better speed than I expected going into it for a guy of his size. I think he's about 6'4", 200 and some pounds, which is a good-sized receiver. He's good after the catch and really has nice ability to reach outside of his frame. These are all things that Marshall brings to the table. Versatile, another thing that I look at with Marshall. He did a lot of things. He's able to win at multiple different levels. He was asked to do quite a bit at LSU when he stepped into that number one wide receiver role after Chase and Jefferson left, or just last year. Now, the weaknesses, one, he doesn't have elite explosiveness on his breaks. He's not a phenomenal route runner. He kind of turns a little bit slowly. This is when his size does show up. He is a little bit sluggish on those breaks when he needs to cut quickly. That's not what Marshall excels at. Also, not a great run blocker. Run blocking is something that he needs to work on. And I think for a guy his size, I was a little bit underwhelmed by that strength that he plays with. I wish for a guy that big, he was dominant at the catch point and really just used that physicality and imposed his will on cornerbacks. That's not necessarily what Terrace Marshall brought to the table. I think it's something that he could develop. It's just that ferocity isn't as natural in Terrace Marshall. And that's just a little bit of a concern because I'd like to see him be a little more physical and use that size to his advantage a little bit more. So strengths, he's got the ability to be a big, freaky type of guy. I mean, with his speed and hips and frame, that's all great for Terrace Marshall. After the catchability and reach, that's all great. Now, the weaknesses, again, strength, a little bit underwhelming. Not a great route runner and explosiveness on his breaks. Needs to work on his run blocking as well. So that's Terrace Marshall there at number 22. At number 21, we have Mac Jones, quarterback, Alabama. Now, Mac Jones is a guy I've gone back and forth on a couple of times throughout my quarterback evaluating process. Now, Mac Jones, I think we know the deal with him, and it's that he is accurate. He is a guy that processes the field better than anyone in the class, and, a good passer down the field, and all of those things. He does a lot of technical things very, very well. Now, the weaknesses in his game, we know it. It's the physical traits, or should I say the lack thereof of those physical traits. I mean, this guy, he is lacking the mobility. He's not a guy that's going to create with his legs. He's not going to create with his arm, really. He doesn't have that great arm talent that we look at a lot of quarterbacks in this league do. And that's what's concerning. I mean, what is his ceiling? What is Mac Jones' ceiling? That's the question mark. I don't think it's as high as the other guys in this class, and that's why I'd take the other guys in this class above him. But those things he brings to the table are very valuable, especially for a lot of teams. I mean, if you give this guy the right pieces around him and the right system, I mean, he can be just as good, if not better, than almost any other quarterback. I mean, he's a guy that anticipates well, sees the field well, makes the throws, and that's very valuable at the quarterback position because that's not something everyone can do. That processing ability is very great with Mac Jones, and a great pocket passer. So Mac Jones, number 21, out of Alabama. Number 20, we have Elijah Vera Tucker, interior offensive lineman, USC. He is, great awareness, great reaction time. Those are two things that are definitely stand out. I mean, he gets hit quickly. He's always ready, always prepared for whatever the defensive tackle is going to bring at him or the defensive end. He's a great run blocker, just pushy, imposes his will on that defensive lineman. Sturdy, good balance, all of those things that you like to see. Now, I think Elijah Vera Tucker will end up being a guard in the NFL. That's what he projects to, in my opinion, because of his, reactions, his length, which is another strength of his. Now, one of his weaknesses, why I think he's going to be a guard, is he's not a special athlete. I mean, he is a guy that is just not a great athlete. He doesn't have fantastic feet. He's not going to be able to keep up with those very quick and twitchy edge rushers on the edge. I just don't think that's what Elijah Vera Tucker brings to the table, and that's okay. But, again, that steadiness, run blocking ability, reaction time and awareness, that is all there for Elijah Vera Tucker, and that's why he's a first-round pick. So he's number 20. And then 19, we have Gregory Rousseau, edge rusher out of Miami. Now, Gregory Rousseau is a guy that a lot of people have faded on quite a bit. Now, I've faded on him just a little bit after watching his tape, a little bit more, but not quite as much as some other guys. I think people at this point are underselling his upside just a little bit. I mean, we look at him, and he is extremely lengthy with quick feet for a guy that's as big as he is. He has some great strength, good in the rushing game as well. Great bend for a guy that is his size. I mean, 6'7". The bend that he brings to the table is great. I mean, he's great on the interior. That's first step and length. It's just overwhelming to a lot of guys on the offensive line. It's really, really great combination of traits for Gregory Rousseau that you don't get very often. And he was overwhelming guys as a sophomore in college. I mean, he was young and dominating. So these are the little technical aspects are things that can be fixed and can be developed from Gregory Rousseau. So I think the criticism is just getting a little bit too out of hand for him. Now, I think there are definitely some things to be worried about. One, I mean, he isn't the twitchiest guy. I mean, He doesn't have many counters, or did not have many counters when he was a sophomore. I mean, if he didn't win right off the bat, he struggled a little bit more to react to that and then create something else on that same thing. If that length and burst did not just overwhelm the guy right away. And then also, I think he needs to develop just some more consistent pass rush moves. I mean, if you get him with the right pass rush coach, the right defensive line coach, he can develop those things. I think that's something that, edge rushers can gain. But we'll see with Gregory Rousseau. I think just he doesn't have enough of them right now in his bag, or at least he didn't when he was a sophomore, to really translate into the NFL. We will see with him. I think he is a little bit of a question mark because he opted out. We really only saw one full year from him. And, he has all the traits, but can he bring it to the table at the NFL level? We will see. But in my opinion, he's definitely a first-round guy, and people are getting a little bit too low on Gregory Rousseau. Then at number 18, we have another one of my guys, Dyami Brown, wide receiver from North Carolina. Yes, I have him above guys like Rashad Bateman. I have him above Terrace Marshall. I have him above Elijah Moore. I know. Not what you were expecting, but Dyami Brown is a guy that just won down the field. It was special. I mean, that deep ability to win downfield using his stop and go, his stutter steps on those go routes, he shakes off defenders down the field. That is extremely valuable and creates a ton of big time plays. And that is something that I think we will see continue in the NFL at the NFL level. Now, another thing that's great about Dyami Brown, his play strength. I mean, he plays physically and big and wins at the catch point and does a lot of things that a guy that is 6', 181 should not do. Now, we'll see if that can continue at the NFL level. So that size is definitely a weakness of his. Can he dominate physically like he did in college, or at least for his size, like he did there? Can he do that in the NFL? I'm not sure. So that's definitely something to look at, and I that is a concern. Now, also, a good guy after the catch. He's got good releases to create separation off the line right away. He's a good blocker. All of those things are what make Dyami Brown great. Now, again, the weaknesses, just a little bit undersized. We will see if that really affects him at the NFL level. I think it definitely could. I don't know if it will. I don't think it will, but I think it could, and it's something to monitor. Another thing is he didn't really have too much of a route tree at North Carolina. I mean, he ran down the field a lot, and he was just kind of running in straight lines, and it worked for him. Now, I don't think that's all he's going to have to do in the NFL. I think he's going to be more of he's going to need to expand his role in an NFL offense, and by doing that, he's going to have to, expand his route tree. So, Dyami Brown, a guy that wins a lot down the field, a guy that has great play strength for a guy of his size with a lot of great releases, good stop and go, good after the catch, good blocker, good feet, is definitely a first-round guy in my opinion. People are sleeping on him. Dyami Brown is this year's Justin Jefferson. Wherever he goes, they will be very happy to have him. Now, number 17, we have Zaven Collins out of Tulsa, linebacker. Now, this guy is a physical specimen. I mean, he's 6'4", 260. He's an absolute unit. A guy that moves well for that speed. Good change of direction. He's explosive. He's great at shooting gaps. Those are things that he does just phenomenally. For a guy as big as he is, I mean, just his athletic traits, The ability to blitz is phenomenal. I mean, a team that likes to blitz a lot, Zayvon Collins, go there. I mean, you're looking at a guy that just can overpower guys at the line of scrimmage, get to the quarterback. Now, he needs some more experience in pass coverage. That's definitely something that is a little bit negative about him. He's just an okay tackler, which is a little bit surprising for a guy as big as strong as he is. He plays a little bit messy. He can look a little bit lost in pass coverage and zone a little bit as well. And he didn't play against the greatest competition at Tulsa either, so his dominance may have just been a little bit as a product of that. I don't think it's something we're super worried about because, a guy that's 6'4", 260 and as explosive and fast as him is going to dominate at any level. So Zayvon Collins, just a freaky type of guy, a first-round pick, definitely. And if he drops late into the first, early second, definitely a steal type of player. You just don't find guys of his nature every day. So Zayvon Collins at 17. At number 16, we have Kwity Paye, edge rusher from Michigan. And Kwity Paye is a rock. He is a massive dude. And for that massive guy, he has some pretty solid athletic traits. He is pretty twitchy. He's pretty quick with good agility for a guy that big. It is impressive from Kwity Paye. Now, another strength of his is, he wins with power. He is a powerful dude. He tosses tackles off to the side, moves around them, and he has some pretty good success with it. He's a pretty good straight line athlete. Again, powerful, explosive out of his stance as well. Just a lot of good things when it comes to Kwity Paye. I think the weaknesses, he needs to better understand a little bit more when to come off blocks and really help in the run game. Because sometimes he's just kind of sticking on there like way after he needs to be, and he could get off the block and go help in the run game. That's what I'd like to see from him a little bit more. And he does look a little bit out of place in the open field, just a bit. He's not going to be that guy that's going to be dropping out into pass coverage for you like a guy like Joseph Osai or Aziz Aguilari might. But that's okay. That's not really what his role is. So Kwity Paye, just a massive dude with good athleticism, that's strong and twitchy. That's what I like to see from Kwity Paye. At number 16. Then number 15, we have Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle, Northwestern. And Rashawn Slater is an interesting offensive line prospect to me because I think he could end up moving in, but he is just so good at what he does. That's why he's so high up here. He has great feet, great footwork. He's quick out of his stance, isn't really caught off guard. He does a great job mirroring, adjusting against edge rushers. You aren't going to find a guy that's better technically at tackle than Rashawn Slater almost ever. Just technique is about as good as it gets. He's a good athlete as well. And that's just all great. Now, the biggest concern is he's a bit undersized for the tackle position. And he's not really physically dominant either. And I think he could struggle a little bit dealing more with those physically imposing edge rushers. We didn't see him in 2020, so that is just a little bit of another question mark there. But how is he going to fare against those more physical guys? That's why I think he could end up being more of a guy that you're going to have to move inside if it doesn't work out at tackle, which I think it might not because of that size. But again, the technique is just about as good as it gets with that athleticism that he brings to the table. And he is pretty strong. It's not like he's just getting manhandled at the snap every time either. Because his technique does make up for that size. So Rashawn Slater, they're at number 15. Now at number 14, we have another offensive tackle, Christian Darrisaw, out of Virginia Tech. My offensive tackle 2 in this class, just above Rashawn Slater. That's right. May not be a super popular opinion, but that is okay. I just think that Christian Darrisaw has more upside to be your true left tackle one that is a dominant guy. I mean, he is a mauler. He is massive. Big-time blocker. That is how I would describe Christian Darrisaw in 3 words. Big-time blocker. I mean, he's a big dude that just pancakes guys and imposes his will on edge rushers, gets up, and out-physicals them. Now, confident in himself and his blocking plan, really doesn't take any unnecessary risks, which is great for Christian Darrisaw. Now, the biggest things, the weaknesses, and why he's not higher, because, I mean, a guy as big and strong as he is, you might think should be a little bit higher. And speaking of how highly I've been talking of him, but, he's a bit quick to open up his hips. His technique is not always great. Defenders can get by him because of this opening up his hips a little bit too quickly. He was also playing in an offense that was a little bit more run heavy. It left him help quite often. He wasn't really left alone without help much at all. So that's just, he did have that little bit of a safety blanket there at Virginia Tech. Not that he couldn't block guys on his own, but just something to look at. So those are the weaknesses, but the strengths. I mean, he's a big-time, massive guy that just pancakes guys, confident with his blocking plan, doesn't really take any of those unnecessary risks. So Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle 2 in this class, number 14 overall prospect. Then at number 13, we have Devontae Smith, wide receiver out of Alabama. Now, Devontae Smith is a very interesting prospect to me. Now, I love the kid. I hope he succeeds. And first, I mean, let's just talk about the strengths. 1, he's a fantastic route runner. Hips, very fluid. He's great at coming back for the ball. I mean, he gets open. He really does a great job at tracking the ball as well. He's a good runner in the open field. Really tears apart zone coverages because of that route running. He's a smart player, good athlete. Now, the weaknesses. I said good athlete. He is not a fantastic athlete. And why that is a little bit of a worry to me is because of his size. Dude is 160 pounds. That is not good to be an NFL wide receiver. Now, I'm not writing him off because of it. I mean, he's still my 13th best prospect here, as we see. And I still think he can be great, but it's just something to look at. I mean, he can be a guy that gets pushed around by more physical corners, which is something he's going to have to deal with in the NFL. I think that is certainly a possibility. That could be an issue for him. And the fact that he isn't a fantastic athlete, a guy that's just off the charts, crazy, I think that is a little bit of a worry. I don't think he's a guy, he's not a guy running the low 4.3s that's just going to blow by you off the line of scrimmage if you press him. So that's just one thing to look at. So that weight mixed with not elite athleticism is a little bit of a concern for Devontae Smith. So that's why he's not higher, but just again, great route runner, great at coming back for the ball. He gets open, just always. He's a good blocker. He has great work ethic from everything I've heard. Great tracking the ball, good runner in the open field. Just all those things make him great, and that's why he is my 13th best prospect. Now at number 12, we have Patrick Surtain, the second out of Alabama. And Patrick Surtain would have been my cornerback too if it wasn't for Caleb Farley's injuries, who we talked about a little bit earlier. But Patrick Surtain, I mean, he's great. Lanky frame, technique at cornerback does not get much better. I mean, great use of hands. He does a great job jamming wide receivers at the line, which does actually make up for his speed because, he just kind of imposes his will right away. And I just talked about it, makes up for his speed. And that's one of his weaknesses, lack of elite speed. It's not awful, definitely not awful, but he just doesn't possess that elite athleticism that you want to see in a lot of those top corners. Now, again, he's a decent athlete, not horrible. So just something to look at. I wish he was a better athlete. He's not a great athlete. So that's why it's the knock on him. Pretty physical. Can sometimes be to his detriment just a little bit. But great feet, great technique. Again, just all of those things together with his lanky frame, good use of hands, good at jamming receivers, physicality, feet, all those things, ability to mirror guys. It's really, really great for Patrick Surtain. I think he's a plug-and-play guy right off the bat. Now we'll see about the athleticism aspect. Again, not a bad athlete by any means, but just not special. And special a lot of times is what you need to be special at the cornerback position. But Surtain just technique-wise is so great. I think he can make up for it. So Alabama corner and Alabama wide receiver back-to-back there, 12 and 13. Surtain there at number 12. Then at number 11, we have quarterback Justin Fields from Ohio State. And Justin Fields is an interesting player to me. I really like Justin Fields and a lot of things he brings to the table. I mean, the physical traits are great. I mean, he is a great runner with the football. I mean, he is a physical runner. He's fast. Now, he's not the most agile guy, but he kind of is like a Cam Newton type. He runs over guys. He's a physical runner, and he's fast while doing it. And he has a good arm. I don't think it's fantastic. I don't think he has a special arm like some of the other guys in this class who we'll talk about. And I don't think his arm talent is eye-popping like some of the other guys in this class, which is why he's a little bit lower than those other guys, or one of the reasons why. But it is still good. It is still good for sure. Now, he is very accurate all over the field, in the middle of the field, down the field. It is great. When he's kept clean, that is one of Fields' strengths, which is very valuable right off the bat. Now, the weaknesses, again, not the athleticism definitely not a weakness, but I'm just relatively to the other guys, that might be a little reason why he's a little bit lower than, say, a guy we'll talk about in a couple of moments. Now, another weakness, biggest one, is under pressure, he makes some erratic decisions. He panics, he makes turnover-worthy plays, he throws things into spots he shouldn't be throwing them, and that's really a bad thing. Another one of his biggest weaknesses is, really moving through his reads, getting past his first read. I mean, a lot of it at Ohio State was schemed up for him, right, to just look at his first guy, Chris Olave, a lot of the time, and just be accurate on his ball, and he could do that over the middle of the field. Now, when he was asked to move to his second, third, he was a little bit slow and stuck to that first one a little bit too long. And that caused some unnecessary, maybe turnover plays or unnecessary, very difficult, things or missed opportunities or plays that just didn't go as they should have because of those things that Fields will do. So that's definitely a big thing to look at, but the traits are all there with Justin Fields. Great runner, good kid, good, good accuracy. Fields is definitely a great prospect, and any team that walks out of the draft with him should be happy. Now, at number 10, we have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker out of Notre Dame, a top 10 player in this class, in my opinion. This kid is rangy. That is how I would describe Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He just flies all over the field. This guy is in pass coverage, which is his biggest strength, is very special. He guards guys like a corner. Just his ability to mirror any wide receiver, slot guys, playing coverage, it is really special. You don't find guys like that very often that can just cover anyone on the field at the linebacker position. And that is what Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah brings to the table that really not many other guys do. He is like a kind of hybrid linebacker safety. He's a positionless guy, flies around the field. He attacks the quarterback with his speed. So that is just, the agility, the speed, moves like a linebacker just shouldn't move. And it's really special to watch. Very fun to watch. Now, the biggest weakness, one, is his size. I mean, that's the most glaring thing here. And that really is what the weaknesses stem from. He's 6'1", 216, which is small for a linebacker. He's more built like a safety or a corner than a linebacker. So he's not, that translates into not really being a great big-time physical presence at the linebacker position. He's not really a thumper in the run game as much. Now, he's still strong. He's still physical and uses his hands well when he's pass rushing. But, that lack of size does catch up to him at some points, and it becomes evident. So, again, he is a top 10 player in this class, though. I mean, the speed, the agility, the pass coverage, which is so important for a linebacker, it's all there. It's as good as you'll ever see. So, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, a very fun player, and a player that day one will make an impact on whichever team he goes to. Then number 9, we have another quarterback, and that is Trey Lance, quarterback, North Dakota State. And Trey Lance is my quarterback 3 in this class, if you have not already figured that out. Sorry, there's no surprises above him. But Trey Lance is really, really a physical specimen. I mean, the running, the arm talent, it is, it's very, very good. It's not something you get all the time from quarterbacks. The moment he steps on the field in the NFL, he's going to have a top 5 arm in the league. He is a runner that creates at an elite level. Now that running is going to have a legitimate impact on the game. From the moment he steps on the field. I mean, he's a guy that can roll out of the pocket with great arm talent and chuck a ball 60 yards down the field. That is what Lance brings to the table. He also brings to the table good decision-making. I mean, he does not put the ball in harm's way. He knows when to take risks and when not to. And that's, really important. And I think that's one of the big things that I look at when I have him over Fields. He's making the better decisions. He's not just chucking the ball into a bunch of, random defenders when he doesn't need to. So those little things, now the weaknesses, one, I think people do tend to I don't think his accuracy is as bad as some people make it out to be. I think he's not accurate. I do think it is a weakness of his, if I was to say, but it's not something that I'm looking at and I'm thinking it's horrible by any means. And then another weakness of his, it's inexperience. I mean, we've only seen him play one season against FCS defenses where he was throwing the ball just over 10 times per game. So we just have not seen him throw the ball much at all, which is definitely scary. I mean, he has such limited reps, it's kind of hard to gauge what you're going to get from Trey Lance. Now, he's got the motor. He's, clearly a freak of an athlete, and I think he is a top 10 player in this class that you can't really pass up on it. I mean, that you don't just get athletes like that every day, and that upside that he brings to the table is so valuable. So Trey Lance is a guy that can be that Patrick Mahomes. He can be that, special player in this league. So that's what I see with Trey Lance. Great player, top 10 player in this class, number 9 on my board. Then number 8, we have Jalen Waddle, wide receiver out of Alabama. And Jalen Waddle is my wide receiver 2 in this class. Now, first of all, we know the deal with Jalen Waddle. He's a fast guy. He is speedy. He wins down the field. He is explosive. That is the big strengths of Jalen Waddle. And then he is a special player after the catch. I mean, this guy, you get the ball in his hands, and he's very great. I mean, just makes the guys miss, makes guys, will just, add an extra 3, 4, 5 yards when he shouldn't be. So that's just great with Jalen Waddle. We talked about with Kadarius Toney a little bit earlier. Jalen Waddle has a similar type of ability after the catch. Very, very good. Now, he's stronger than you would expect for a guy that's his size. I mean, he wins at the catch point. Just kind of, a physical guy for how big he is. I mean, he's compact. I mean, kind of is like Tyreek Hill in that regard. I don't want to say he's Tyreek Hill, but he's fast, and he is compact and wins more with his strength than you'd expect. Now, he relies on his speed a little bit to create separation, which, I mean, he has it, so it's not too big of a deal. Just something to look at because he's not a phenomenal route runner. He needs to work on, his breaks and just quick, twitchy movements. That's just not something that Jalen Waddle does at an elite level as a route runner right now. And so that's just something to look at. So his speed is his main, what he relies on the most for separation. But that's okay. He does have truly great speed, and, he can win with that. So Jalen Waddle can be that kind of Tyreek Hill guy in your offense. I'm not saying he's going to be Tyreek Hill, but he can play that role of that fast, down the field, just separator guy. Jalen Waddle, number 8. Number 7, we have Jalen Phillips, edge rusher, University of Miami. And this guy is a top, obviously, 7-player, talent-wise, in this class, in my opinion. I mean, this guy, he is a great edge rusher prospect. Now, I've heard people talk about, there's no tier 1 of edge rushers. There's no elite edge rusher prospects in this class. I disagree. I think Jalen Phillips is an elite edge rusher prospect. I mean, he is explosive. He is physical at the size. The size that he has is great. Now, he has great bend. He's powerful. He's got finesse that just jumps off the tape. Quick. He's twitchy. Good hands. Just a pure pass rusher with just great physical traits. Jalen Phillips is a very good player. Now, there's concerns. There's a couple. He does have a little bit of an upright stance, which makes his movement just a little bit awkward. Does prefer to make moves towards the inside, which maybe he's not always able to do in the NFL, but I think he was able to win enough on the outside too, where I'm not too concerned about it. Now, obviously, the biggest thing is his injuries and his kind of wacky history. I mean, he retired from football already because of his concussions and just major injury issues that seemingly plagued him. So that's definitely the biggest concern, but I think he will be okay in the NFL. I mean, the way he's answered his questions, I think he will be okay. And so that's the biggest thing, but just the way he pushes the pocket and creates, then he's speed off the edge. I mean, he can do both. He's strong, speedy, explosive, bend, finesse, uses his hands well. Jalen Phillips is a great edge rusher prospect. Number 7 on my board. Number 6, we've got Micah Parsons, linebacker, Penn State. Now, this is the first guy that I consider a maybe blue chip prospect. I think all the guys below them have some little issues, and Micah Parsons, I guess, kind of has some issues, but it has nothing to do with him on the field, really. I mean, Micah Parsons is a freak. Micah Parsons is a special blitzing linebacker. You do not get blitzing linebackers like Micah Parsons ever. Just that combination of size, explosiveness, the balance that he has to his game, his tackling, it is all there. His run defense, just a absolutely phenomenal player between the tackles, doing all those things. You don't see guys like that. You just don't. You don't see guys like Micah Parsons, and that's going to be something that translates to the NFL right away. Now, a little bit, just some things to point out. Now, he is not special in pass coverage as much as he is blitzing and being that dominant upfront presence in the run game and tackling and all. But he is decent to good, I would say. He's not a big-time, fly around the field pass coverage guy like a JOK is. But still, a pretty solid pass coverage guy. And you just combine that with his special blitzing and run defense. That is what really makes him great. And you just don't find guys like this in the draft. So Micah Parsons, blue chip prospect in my opinion. Obviously, the character concerns, that is definitely a thing. I don't think it affects things too much because I don't really know the full details. And I think he will shape it up. He's just a kid. We'll see. But Micah Parsons, number 6. Number 5, we have Penn Sewell. Penn Sewell out of Oregon. Just a massive dude. I mean, this guy just has franchise left tackle written all over him. One of those other blue chip prospects, in my opinion. Very good feet, good balance, very athletic. He's young. He's a big-time blocker. Really drives with his ability to sink his hips, win matchups just against edge rushers. Always, just ability to ride up the pocket with edge rushers. That is what you love to see. There's just not many holes in his game. Now, I guess the technique is not flawless. There's occasional times where he might slip up just a little bit or lose his balance just a little bit, but not really. I mean, it's not really there's not any time where I'm like, oh, that's a concern with Penn Sewell. He is just, doing most things right for the most part now. He is a little bit untested. I mean, again, we didn't see him play in 2020, and he really did not face elite edge rusher talent in the Big 12, and that's a concern for sure. But, I mean, overall, just Penn Sewell is a freaky, athletic tackle that has all the upside in the world. He screams. Just franchise left tackle, blue chip. You're going to get a great player in Penn Sewell. That's why he's going to be a top 5-6 pick in this draft. If not, you're getting a steal. But Sewell, number 5 prospect, takes me to number 4. Jamar Chase, wide receiver, LSU. Jamar Chase is the best wide receiver in this class, hands down for me. Some people think it's a debate. I don't. Just everything a wide receiver can do, he does well. He is explosive. He is physically imposing. He just dominates, again, physically. He's a good route runner. He's a good athlete. Just does a phenomenal job high-pointing the ball. He has good hands. He's tough. There are no holes in Jamar Chase's game. There are no weaknesses in Jamar Chase's game. Everything he does at least pretty well. Now, I guess I can tell you what he doesn't do at an elite level. Now, he's not the fastest guy in the world. I'll say that. He is pretty fast, not blazing speed. And he's a little bit short. Those are what I'd say about Jamar Chase. Those are what he doesn't do phenomenal. But he's a freakishly good, explosive athlete and just physically dominant, just beats guys all over the field, anywhere, down the field, in short intermediate game, can win against press or zone coverage. Just every area of being a wide receiver, he is dominant. Jamar Chase, number 4, blue chip prospect. The moment he steps onto the field, he is a top 20 receiver in the league. That's not something you can say about wide receiver prospects very often. Number 3, we have Trevor Lawrence, quarterback of Clemson. Oh my goodness, he's not number 2 or number 1 That's right. He's number 3. Trevor Lawrence is not the greatest thing since sliced bread like so many people make him out to be. Now, don't get me wrong. He is fantastic. Look at him. He's number 3 on my board in this class with so many elite talents here up at the top. I have him above Jamar Chase and Penn Sewell and Micah Parsons and Jalen Phillips, who I all absolutely love. Trevor Lawrence does a lot of things phenomenally and is a great prospect, a quarterback prospect you do not get all the time. He would be number 1 in a lot of classes. Trevor Lawrence, the difference between him and the top 2 guys, I'm not sitting here saying that Trevor Lawrence has any real weaknesses, really. I'm saying there might be a couple more things he's just not incredible at, like some of the other guys, the guys above him. Trevor Lawrence is just pretty good at this and not incredible at this. That's just the difference. And for me, that is, 1, Trevor Lawrence gets stuck on his first read just a little bit more than I would like. I'd like to see that processing speed go up just a bit. It's not bad, because a lot of times he does things very well, but there are definitely points where it's not at the level I'd like it to be, so he's just pretty good at that. Then we look at his arm talent, which is good. It is good, but he's not a guy that's just running around flicking things 60 yards on the run super comfortably, like some other guys in this class who we'll talk about in a moment. So he's good arm talent, not incredible arm talent. And so just those little things are those little differences that can change things. Now, don't get me wrong. Lawrence does so many great things. I mean, he is a good athlete. He runs well. He has a fantastic arm, just great arm strength. He is good. He has good accuracy. I mean, he's been that dude for a while, and that is very valuable as well. And that's something that he does have on a guy we'll talk about in a second. So Trevor Lawrence, phenomenal player, does a lot of things great. You don't get quarterback prospects like him all the time, but it just comes down to he just does a couple of more things that are only pretty good instead of incredible. Then my number 2 guy, who is Zach Wilson, quarterback, BYU, who is my number 1 quarterback in this class, as you can tell. Zach Wilson is a special player. The arm talent that he brings to the table is something you just do not see. You don't see it. I mean, he just flings a ball 60 yards like it's nothing when he's running to the right on the sideline, and he just whips it 60 yards. It's like nothing. And that is what makes him special. That is special. That arm talent is something you just do not see from quarterbacks. That is Mahomes, Rodgers type stuff there that Zach Wilson brings to the table. Now, another thing, he's accurate. Zach Wilson is a very accurate player, and he's great at that. He's great in terms of his ability to scan the field and move through his reads. That is something he has on Trevor Lawrence. So is the arm talent. And the accuracy is phenomenal as well. The accuracy down the field is great. Now, he is a little bit smaller. He's only about 6'3", and he's a little bit skinnier, on the skinnier side, I should say, which could hurt him just a little bit. He's not quite that same ideal build like Trevor Lawrence is. But, I mean, just the fluidity in his game, the accuracy is phenomenal. Zach Wilson is really special, really, really special. And I think he will end up going to the Jets. I do think Lawrence will go number 1 to the Jaguars. Everything that we've seen has pointed that way. But, I mean, Zach Wilson to me is just better for the reason that he is just great at more things than Trevor Lawrence is. And that's not, I mean, they're both special. They both would be number 1 in almost every class. So those are my third and second best players. Sorry if you got an issue with it, but Zach Wilson to me, just more arm talent there. A guy that has a, better anticipation, better ability to move through his reads consistently. And to me, that just outweighs that experience that Trevor Lawrence has on Zach Wilson, the slightly better frame, and maybe slightly stronger arm from a clean pocket. To me, that Zach Wilson is just a better quarterback prospect than Trevor Lawrence. And both will be great, but Zach Wilson to me is just better. So Zach Wilson number 2, Trevor Lawrence number 3, and then number 1, who else but Kyle Pitts, the best player in the 2021 NFL draft. I mean, just an absolute freak. People throw out the term generational too much around draft time. It's something that people just say, oh, this guy's generational. You hear it every year. But Kyle Pitts is actually generational. Kyle Pitts is a guy you get once every 20 years. That is the type of player that Kyle Pitts is. Kyle Pitts is a guy who is the best receiving tight end you will ever see come out of the draft, who's also a very good blocker. I mean, the body control this guy brings, the athleticism, the size, just everything is phenomenal. I mean, you're putting the top corners in this class on this guy, and they just can't stop him. Against Alabama, he was unstoppable against that defense when everything is there to stop Kyle Pitts. Double teams, it doesn't matter. He just dominates physically. He's a good blocker. Not great. Not an elite blocker, but that's okay. Receiving is the most important role of a tight end, really, anyways. So Kyle Pitts, that receiving is just phenomenal. He is maybe the best receiver just straight up in this class. And then you add the blocking. It is really just incredible what Kyle Pitts can do. He's unstoppable. He is unstoppable. So Kyle Pitts, number 1 player in this class. He is generational. That's that for Kyle Pitts. Yeah, we get it with him. Whatever team he goes to will be very happy and will have a special player on their hands in Kyle Pitts. So, yeah, if you made it this far, wow. I think we're about an hour and 43 minutes in. I am very impressed if you made it so far, and if you did, thank you. Thank you for listening. I know it's been a long video, a lot of opinions, a lot of time I have spent researching all of these guys was poured out into this video, so I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned some stuff today, so thank you so much. It's draft day. I hope you guys are excited. I hope you enjoyed. Comment down below who you want your favorite team to draft. And as always, until next time, peace.